Good morning, everyone, and welcome to another live edition of Wealth Building Wednesday, brought to you by TRHT Selma. TRHT is an initiative, a nationwide initiative sponsored by the W.K. Kellogg Foundation, and Selma is blessed enough to be a part of 14 sites across the country, and TRHT Selma is super blessed today because both of the co-directors are on the show. And as a part of Wealth Building Wednesday today, what we're going to be doing is talking about the terms of marketing, branding, right? And public relations. What's the difference? What are they? How can they help us build our small businesses? Most of you all know that small businesses are the backbone to our economy in this country. And small businesses, owning our own businesses is also a really, really great way for us to build generational wealth. And that's what Wealth Building Wednesday is all about. So we want you, if you are a small business owner, if you know a small business owner, if you have seen a small business owner who may be able to benefit from some information around marketing, public relations, and branding, tag them in this video. Make sure that you're taking notes for them and sharing this in Messenger and all sorts of places. Also, if they are not on Facebook, make sure you invite them to listen in. Wealth Building Wednesday rebroadcast every single Wednesday at 1:30 Central Standard Time on our media partner, WBFZ Z105.3. And like I said, so I'm going to get to our guest. I am so excited to have him here today. Daron Harris is the other side of TRHT Selma. We serve as a dynamic duo, and we are co-directors of TRHT Selma. So it is indeed a pleasure to welcome you here this morning. Good morning, Daron.
Good morning. It's really a pleasure to be here. I'm a big fan of Wealth Building Wednesday for sure. And as we get started, I want to thank you, Lydia, for inviting me. It's such a blessing being in this work with you. And I also want to thank our TRHT Selma partners at the Selma Center for Nonviolence, our program partners, all of our BBCF family.
Yay.
And a big hello, shout out WBFZ Radio, FM 105.3, the heart, mind, and soul of the Black Belt. So yes, we appreciate reaching your listeners today too.
Absolutely. And so we have entered this work over 3 years ago now. And one of the biggest things that we talked about was leveling the playing field across the board for people, regardless of their ethnicity or how they identify themselves. And Wealth Building Wednesday is just one of the tools that we're using to do that in order to help people build generational wealth, people who have traditionally been left out of this opportunity. So this morning, for those of you all who don't know Daron really, really well, he is also known as the Alabama PR man, right? So
right.
When I tell you he knows the ins and outs of this thing called public relations, and we're going to talk about the importance of marketing, branding, and public relations this morning. So Daron, if you don't mind just sharing with our viewers and listeners, what expertise do you bring to the table? Y'all are gonna be floored because he is an awesome asset to our community.
Thank you so much, Lydia. So you wanted to know a little bit about background?
Yes.
Okay, great. So I have come into marketing and PR, but public relations primarily. Over many years of hands-on learning organizationally and on the job, first starting many years ago in radio, television, starting in my collegiate years, and helping to do some things, sort of running the radio station on campus, also starting television network on campus and handling the public relations, and being the public relations officer for those things, moving my career forward into the New York, New Jersey metro market, later out of school, entering into radio syndication. And from that, working very heavily in the music industry for many, many years. And then also combined with that, marketing research as an adjunct a little bit later, focus groups, dealing with consumers. So over many years, that kind of combined and increased my skills in the public relations sector. And eventually I decided I wanted to return home to Alabama, my home, and to try to connect things better and get the messaging out in a better way, because I saw a lot, Alabama just having a lot of difficulty, a lot of silos between the different communities of people and townships across the state, and nobody really holistically trying to look at it as a whole and to share all this wealth of great information that we have in the state and all the good things that are going on here for progress, as opposed to constant negative information that people perceived about Alabama as a people and a place. Whenever you're in another part of the country, you hear so many negative things that others that have never traveled here before. And there's a lot of misconceptions. So I felt there was opportunity to help alleviate misconceptions, improve the message, and connect people where they weren't traditionally working together before, by relocating and getting back down here to Alabama back in 2014 when I decided to make that transition. And I've never been happier. It's been wonderful because it's a real people person job. You're constantly communicating with people and nurturing relationships.
Absolutely. And that's an important part of what we'll be talking about this morning. So, again, if you just tuned in, make sure that if you are a small business owner, if you are thinking about starting your own business, if you work for nonprofits, this is an opportunity for you to learn some of the basics around marketing, branding, and public relations. And so let's dive into the questions now.
Mm-hmm.
What exactly, because we're using these three terms, right, that a lot of folks use interchangeably, but
Yes.
they're really not the same thing.
And that's a big part of the problem. So let's demystify this, because understanding the difference is going to help you to differentiate your services and also whom you may be hiring to help you do certain things. And it's also going to give clarity to those professionals to be able to help you better. So understanding up front is the key. So I'm glad you're asking this, because like you said, the terms get bandied about: marketing, branding, public relations, PR, and communications. And a lot of people use them almost interchangeably. And that's not good. It's not good to keep doing that. So let's put some definitions out today. I'm going to use some standards that I use as a part of the team of the Public Relations Society of America. And as part of that, the PR Council of Alabama, which is an adjunct of that organization. So that's the professional organization of the United States. I'm very happy to be a member of that. And so these definitions I'm going to give you are what we generally use as those organizations. So let's start with marketing. Marketing is really management and function that identifies needs and wants of people, and offers products and services to satisfy those needs or demands. And it helps cause transactions that deliver products or services in exchange for something of value to you as the provider, okay? The organization that's offering a product or service. And very key to this, it's targeting specific customers or specific people in that transactional encouragement. So that's marketing. It ties in closely, ultimately, to sales and a financial transaction of some sort, most often. So marketing and sales teams work very closely together. Now let's talk about branding. But before we understand branding, let's define brand, okay? Because branding is the action of bringing a brand to life. But a brand is, let's say you've got a product, service, or a concept, okay? And you want to publicly distinguish that from other products, services, or concepts out in the universe, out in the world, so that you can easily communicate about your brand, and you can easily market your brand. So you have to have a distinguishing line so that you're not just like everybody else, and people can understand what you're offering and how it's different, and it might be better for them to connect with you. So a brand name is like a name of a distinctive product, like, Revlon, for example, AT&T, or a service or a concept. And it could also be just a name of an organization, for example, if you're a charitable organization. Now, branding is the process of creating and disseminating the brand name. So you can apply that to your corporate identity or pretty much any type of organization that you might represent. And you can also apply it to individual products and services names. So look at this backdrop I have right now. I'm glad you had the full screen up. This is an example of a little bit of branding where you have, we're here in an organizational context today through BBCF and TRHT communication channels on Facebook and ultimately the radio, but we wanted our audience and our public to connect with the organization. So we have a logo and a website available information. This is a typical backdrop that I would use or team members would use in a video conference setting. So there's tacit communication going on that's nonverbal but visual and silently in the background.
Awesome. So now, is there any aspects of marketing, branding, PR? Is there one of them that's more important than the other?
No. The answer is no. Ultimately, having and when we talk about this, we're talking about how does that relate to the success of your small business, right?
Right.
You ultimately want to strike a balance, and we'll get into the definition of PR in a minute as well. But you need to have a sweet balance amongst all these elements. That's going to be key for you, and they eventually become equally important. So being holistic and trying to connect things together in a way that makes sense is really the key. And that's central to my philosophy behind everything that I do. Now, when you're starting in business, you're going to notice that you're going to be starting off on the ground. Timing, process, and staging and strategy is going to be very important at the beginning as you're getting on your feet and getting things off the ground. So initially, you're probably going to have a lot more priority on brand creation and branding and understanding and designating your market. Like those are going to be some initial things that are much more important from the get-go, but then that leads into a more day-to-day momentum of a public relations strategy that becomes a living, breathing entity of its own over time, and then complements and nurtures and grows the branding and helps grow the marketing and the branding strategies along with it. But initially, you have to have your brand, you have to understand what your brand is, and you have to create that idea. So timing is going to be everything, but there's a process to it.
So now you talked about public relations and need to define it. So you share with us about marketing and branding. So how does public relations then relate to those? Like what exactly is public relations?
Okay, this is the real fun answer. Now PR, public relations at its core, relations is the key word here, and as much as anything else, it's about interactivity. It's about interactions with communities and people. It's about relationships, most importantly, and dialogues and listening and the conversations that are a part of a relationship. So let me give you the official definition that we use at the Public Relations Society of America. It's very simple, but I want you to listen very closely because there's a lot of meat in here, even though it's a short statement. Public relations is a strategic communication process that builds mutually beneficial relationships between organizations and their publics. And publics is plural in this definition. Okay, that's a community acknowledgement there, that there are different groups within the community. Now, under a PR tent, there are different disciplines and functions that include a long list of things and skills that you're going to be doing every day. There's corporate communications, there's crisis communications. That's not fun, but it can be a part of it. Executive communications, internal, external, investor relations, marketing communications, media relations, content creation, events management, social media, multimedia, reputation management, speech writing, and even brand journalism. So there's a lot within the house of public relations that are individual functions to execute the job.
And all of those things are really, really important because when we think about building a brand, when I consider small business owners who may not have a representative, someone working on their behalf to, let's say, clean up a negative situation, right? Or we may feel like, well, someone has done me wrong as a small business owner, so let me correct them. And to do that in public, like say on social media, may not be the best approach. So having someone who is a public relations professional on your team, right, whether they're a consultant or someone who has public relations experience as is a staff member serving another capacity, but who is able to speak to, like you said, crisis communications or things like that, it's a great thing to have. So now, how can bad public relations or bad brand management ruin a business?
So many ways, so little
Right.
time, and so many war stories to think about. But let's look at it simply. If good public relations will create trust and relations and very dynamic and important relationships for you and your audience, your community, members in the public, and your customers. If you're they're in that mix. They're vitally important to you. Your audience, your public are your customer base. Is your
Mhm.
customer base as a small business. Now, if you start engaging in bad public relations and sharing faulty information, divisive information, confusing information, really, that is the risk that most people run into by making missteps or trying to do too much at once or changing their course in midstream or darting around, not being consistent in the information. If you start doing those kind of things and not living up to your values and your mission that you've represented earlier on to your constituency, you're going to erode trust with your audience. And if those are customers, they may never return to you. They may go take their business elsewhere. And then this also can fuel a stream of negative reputation working against you and damage your reputation because of gossip factor, the whole level of social media. Everybody is empowered to go on Yelp and give you a bad business review,
Mhm.
or go into your comment feed on Facebook or Twitter or other places. And so if you're making a lot of missteps that are confusing people and giving them bad information and causing them inconvenience in their lives and businesses and your customer relationships, that can magnify exponentially. And you might have a whole team of agents out there that you're unaware of actively spreading bad information about your business and ruining your reputation just through word of mouth. And you're suddenly your phone's not ringing anymore and your email inbox is empty because the word is out that you have not lived up to what your messaging had purported to be when you first set out to do what you were doing as a business. So consistency, so it really, the biggest damage is eroding trust with the people that you're communicating with and
And
ruining a relationship.
right. And you have made so many points in what you just said. And it made me think back to some instances where I've actually seen people on social media, um, respond, but not in a professional way
Hmm.
to what maybe one customer may have said or one staff member may, something a staff member may have done. But when we respond, so robustly, we have to be mindful that that's
Hmm.
just one customer. That's
Right.
just one staff person, right? But now that you're bringing social media, right, and all of us into it, it becomes like that's your storyline, right?
Hmm.
And that's not the story I don't think most of us want to paint of ourselves, our businesses, or our nonprofits, y'all. We want to make sure that we are understanding that this is across the board, even
Hmm.
for self, right? It's important that you market yourself well, that you brand yourself. What's your brand? Are you known for are you known for being sharing information and being a positive person, or are you known for like starting fights everywhere? So we have to be mindful of those things. So, like, what are the greatest challenges in your many years of experience with clients? What are some of the greatest challenges you experienced when you talk about public relations and clients not
Hmm.
necessarily vibing with what you're suggesting?
Right. So, at this point, I've been in public relations for over 25 years now, in one capacity or another, and even a little bit more if you count in some stuff I was doing as a student. But I'm only giving you the professional years. So I've seen a lot, and I've been involved in a lot of colorful situations. And we could probably do a whole nother show on the war stories.
I know,
But
right?
on a macro level, and the most consistent thing over time, and a little bit of wisdom that I've gained through experience across several clients over those years, I'd say the most consistent challenge that I see from organization to organization, client to client, is the difficulty in helping your client to understand and to see the value of being focused on priority communications, and for the client not to try to throw too many logs on the fire all at the same time. So once a brand strategy or a communication strategy is decided upon, stick to it consistently, work on it, give it the air it needs to breathe, but don't try diluting it or camouflaging your priority messages by immediately launching 15 other ones on top of it because you're excited to get the word out about so many things. Be intentional about the way you share the information, because you can overload. People can get overloaded very easily, and then that's going to turn them off from even listening to you in the first place. So be intentional about the way, the rhythm, and the parsing of the information that you get out there, the timing of it. And so don't shoot yourself in your own foot by trying to do too much and conquer the world all at the same time. You look at it as a set of priorities and follow a timeline that follows what your priorities are for that point in time for your business. And so that way you're sharing information that's equally important to people at the right time that they might not need to hear it. So, also clients need to be intimately involved and make the time necessary for their public relations consultant. Be a part of the decision making. Give the information and the input. You can't give too much information really to a public relations consultant. The more information they have, the better they can communicate what's in your mind as the business owner to get out there. Do not expect them to be Merlin or a magician who can just create magical reputation for you overnight. That doesn't come from the PR person. They're going to advise you on the strategies. They're going to bring their relationships to help you. Like they may know reporters already. They may already have the social media accounts set up, the web designing skills there. That's all going to help you. But ultimately, they're only as good as the information that you are wanting to share about what you are doing as a business and the services you're offering. So the more time you spend with them, now obviously you're hiring somebody so you don't have to spend a lot of time doing everything all the time with them, but make allowances for the weekly meeting. Be a part of the editorial process before the mission statement goes up on the website, because these are critical branding components that you need to be involved with, and do not expect the PR consultant to just magically arbitrarily decide those things for you, because then you can get in a lot of trouble later when you get too far out in left field. So that's the most consistent challenges that I see is clients not understanding that dynamic sometime. I can give you some really colorful war stories, but we would spend all day doing that. Most recently, COVID has been an extreme challenge where events and functions have had to be continually canceled and rescheduled or postponed. There's been a lot of punting going on. And because that period of time is now essentially a 2-year period, what you'll see is organizations over that course of time may be laying people off. Budgets may have changed. Certain coworkers or employees have left. And so a project may still be alive and a postponement date may be contracted and supposed to happen, but the same team of people that were initially going to produce it and work with you for it may no longer exist as they originally did on the client side. So that's been a huge challenge in the last couple of years.
So what about your successes? I know you've had many, many, many successes, but what are some of the greatest successes that you've had with clients over the years?
Oh, there's been so many beautiful ones. Magnificently with BBCF, I was very honored. BBCF was my third client in the state of Alabama. And to this day, I really say my most important client in my life, because through BBCF, we are actively enriching and helping people in lives and communities. It is an important on-the-ground thing that we are doing through BBCF. And to be coming aboard and with an organization that was growing and had decided that it needed a cohesive public relations strategy with consultancy coming on board back in 2015 now. So being on that kind of genesis point and then watching the organization grow and the messaging and the platform developing and connecting better with communities, to me, that's been a really beautiful thing. That's a great success story that I like to tell people about. We saw this recently with the COVID CARES funding and being able to get emergency funding out across 16 counties in the Black Belt. And so that was really in action. There was a heavy communications and PR component to that. We had to go literally door to door, town by town to communicate, to get the word out there. So that was the relationships portion of what we say in public relations, what I was mentioning earlier as we were defining terms. And just some fun stuff. I've had a client of mine this past year won a Grammy for their first time, and just being now I wasn't responsible for that, but I was responsible for having a system in place and a PR universe that was built for the client, so that then we could get things immediately to where they needed to be based on that information and that achievement and career. And I've just had many beautiful things over time, working with different clients, and being able to connect them with other clients that I'm working with is a success always when that's able to happen, when you can connect people in your universe together and then they can start helping each other.
Yes.
So, really not a lot of time to get into all the successes. My first client in the state was the city of Fort Payne, Alabama, for example. And within a couple of years, we had our arts and culture festival there that we did every year, named the top tourism event of the state of Alabama. So we're acknowledged by the governor and state tourism, and that was really beautiful to have happened in my second year in the state of actually doing PR, to have our event and cultural stuff at that level. So just a lot of great things in Alabama to share.
Absolutely.
Mm-hmm.
So, yeah, I told you he had a lot of expertise. He has a wonderful resume, right? So if you want to check him out, he is at the alabamaprguy.com. Yes, I looked him up. Look.
It's actually alabamaprman.com, and it'll give you a little story of some of the back history and also a little essay about why I do what I do. Little bits about me in there, but it's just a peek,
and your heart, right? Mm-hmm. Because you bring your heart to this work. But I will say though, in our closing minute, if you want to just kind of share with us, or ask you to share with us any tips you may have for small business owners who are considering investing in marketing, branding, or PR consultants, because that could actually be 3 different people. Mm-hmm. Who have a very specific set of expertise.
Yeah, so this is a great question, Lydia. So mm-hmm. for those of you who are a business owner and you're thinking about making this leap of faith, and you've got a little bit of resources to invest in bringing some consultants and professional advice on board to your team, definitely think of it as a priority sooner than later for you. And so when you feel your timing's right, don't let the fear of spending some extra dollars each month keep you indefinitely pushing off PR, considering good PR, or postponing and pushing it off. Because if you start that, it's going to hurt you in building initial momentum for your business, and you'll get into this kind of unhealthy role of like never actually doing it. So you might wind up in a bind later. So it's better to address it earlier on. Find someone to work with you with a good broad skill set, who brings a lot of skill to the table and can cover many of the disciplines within the kind of PR framework that I outlined earlier. That'll give you extra value working with a smaller budget. And think about it this way: rather than wasting your money and all the hours every month designing your own flyers, running to the copy store, constantly going to Walmart to buy more toner, which is more expensive than gold per pound, I know, right? Or Office Depot, think about taking those same resources and trusting somebody who needs the work and who can help you to advise you and take on those things within their service arrangement for you, so you're not really actually spending all that much more money, or maybe even not more money at all, or saving money, because that consultant that you bring may have a lot of streamlining already in place through their career that can save you money to do the same things you were wasting a lot of time and money doing earlier. So consultants come in a wide range. Some do off-the-shelf pricing and will charge you just per actions, like a press release, working on a website. Others are on a retainer basis if you're a larger organization.
Absolutely. So I want to thank you so much for your time this morning. We're definitely going to have you back because this is a hot topic. People seem to be very interested in marketing, branding, and public relations. And all three of them are key to our success as we build towards wealth. Wealth Building Wednesday airs each and every Wednesday at 10 o'clock a.m. Central Standard Time, live on the Facebook pages of the Selma Center for Nonviolence and the Black Belt Community Foundation. We appreciate each and every one of you for joining us this morning. We want to encourage you to share this information. If you have folks who are not on Facebook and you cannot share this live video with them, we want you to encourage them to listen in on our media partner WBFZ 105.3 FM, 1:30 p.m. Central Standard Time. All of the videos, I got a wonderful call yesterday from a young lady who heard us on the radio and then said, hey, do y'all tape this? And I said, yes, ma'am. You have access to it any time of day or night right here on Facebook. So we are appreciative to you, Daron, for taking time out of your busy day. The AlabamaPRN.com. It is in the comments. So if you want to check out all of his wonderful work or pieces of his wonderful work, because it's definitely not all of the work that he has done, please check out his website. If you'd like to support the continuation of Wealth Building Wednesday, all of the other amazing things that TRHT Selma is doing in and around our community, please log on to trhtselma.org. You can make your contribution. It can be a one-time, it can be a continuous contribution, but we want to keep this work going. So we appreciate you for tuning in, and we, until next Wednesday, get to building that wealth.